Welcome to another episode of REVXP Presents. I'm Chris Mann, the SVP of REVXP, the gaming-focused division of the global integrated sports marketing agency Revolution. And today, I'm excited to be back. We've been out for a couple of weeks and took kind of August off for a variety of different reasons. But we've got a great episode today featuring Grace Watkins, the co-founder and CEO of Click Media. What's up, Grace?
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you.
Good to have you. I know you and I have known each other for a few years. You've been, now I think you're in the States. You think you just got back from Australia. You've been busy. We've been busy, like I said. So we've been trying to get this one scheduled. And I'm happy to have you on here. It's September 7th. We're coming off a great Labor Day, great summer. And Grace and I are going to talk about Fortnite and Fortnite Creative. So for those of you guys that don't know, Click is a specialized gaming agency really focused on representing creators, doing strategy in gaming and production, and they build great Fortnite experiences for brands. Grace, did I miss anything?
No, I think that hits all the main ones.
Do you want to talk any of the talent? Because I know you guys represent some really big talent. Do you want to cover some of the top talent you guys work with?
Yeah. I mean, talent has really been our bread and butter since we started Click about 6 years ago. Our co-founder and my brother is Muselk, who is now like a very large Fortnite creator himself. And that was kind of really how we kicked off. He was feeling like he needed support in growing his career and was really viewing growing his channel as a business, as I think a lot of creators should. And so he was looking for management and found that to be such an additive experience to his business. And so started to have more and more of his friends kind of come to him and say like, hey, like, can you introduce me to your manager? And that's really how Click was born, in wanting to represent who we sort of be the best in gaming at that time, based out of Australia, but now Australia and the US. And it's really just grown from that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. Obviously, you talk about Australia and majority of your talent coming from there, but of course we'll jump right into that question because brands are always talking. A lot of brands that I work with are always focused on US, and a lot of the creators you guys work with are really US, have a strong US audience. You want to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll jump into the questions that we've got scheduled for our conversation.
Yeah, look, when we started, certainly all of our creators were based out of Australia. Now, so it's more evenly split between Australia and the US. But I think that's one of the really special things about gaming and the really special things about creators on social media is that gaming is somewhere where you're based actually isn't that relevant. And for all of our creators, whether they're Australian based or not, their demographics are all largely the same, majority US audience, UK, Australia, Canada. And I think that's just because one of the best benefits of uploading content on YouTube or Twitch is that they're sorting based on language rather than place of upload. So creators have this amazing ability to be based anywhere in the world. And if they're creating brilliant content that resonates with an audience, they're going to be able to find a really big one. So I think actually starting in Australia was probably a great little early cheat code for us because there was no one else doing it in Australia at the time. And so we were able to create this really amazing business based out of Sydney, Australia, but that really had a global reach. So I feel like that's actually been really advantageous for us.
Yeah, and we always talk to our clients about like gaming is borderless, and because like to the point you made, digital of nature. If you find a great creator that has a really strong content and story and really entertaining in what they do, and just good to work with, which a lot of your talent are. We've worked with you for Chipotle, right? A client that's very focused on North America. So, kudos to you guys and continue to grow that, that North American audience, obviously, but also the global audience. So, Grace, let's jump in. We already kind of jumped in and went off schedule, but it's all good. What games are you playing? Is it Fortnite or what do you got going on? What are you playing when you're not working?
Well, controversially, I actually never started as a gamer myself. I really fell into it through Elliot, my business partner, and completely fell in love with the industry and the business side of things. So I am probably someone in gaming that hasn't come from a super strong gamer background. I think that's actually been a strength in our ability to kind of communicate with brands and articulate the value proposition of gaming to people who maybe feel like, oh gosh, this is a different language. And if I don't understand the difference between like FPS and MMO or whatever, like I can't play in this space, which is obviously not the case. But over the last 6 months, we've been building our in-house game development team who's building experiences in Fortnite. And so the games I've been playing are the ones that they've been building. And we had an afternoon in the office last week where we had everyone playing the new games that we're about to be releasing over the next couple of weeks. So it was super fun, and it's just like truly a new and quite amazing experience for me to see these guys that are so talented building these things from scratch. And it's just it's a really cool thing to see.
It's amazing. I mean, I agree with your point. Like, I grew up a gamer. I remember getting a Nintendo, but I got my start in the industry, working in the NFL. I ran Campbell's Chunky Soup's NFL partnership for a decade. I worked on Pepsi's MMA stuff, and so while I was always a gamer and playing games, I didn't grow up in esports. And I remember I was one of the first people that came over from traditional sports to gaming, and gaming in esports at the time was like 2015, 2016. And now, like, flash forward to 2023, I think one of the biggest attributes to your point was, like, I didn't grow up in the space. And so I took all these great learnings, similar to you, and applied them to working with brands and translating what was happening in the space, and being able to translate it to brands has been, one of my biggest strengths, I think. So, I think a lot of folks reach out and they're always like, oh, I'm platinum, whatever, League of Legends player. I'm like, that doesn't necessarily translate to being, like, good in business, right? That's fantastic, and the space. Agree. But that, that's not like the key thing on your resume. And, that's one of the things a lot of people reach out and they're always like, hey, how do I get a start in the industry? And, focus on business. What we do is a business, whether it's sports or entertainment. It is entertainment. Gaming is an entertainment business, a sports business, can be based on that. And so your experiences in business really apply and set you up for success in the space.
I couldn't agree more. I think obviously it's wonderful that there are so many different career options in gaming now, and that probably wasn't considered the case like 5 to 10 years ago, or it felt like you needed to come from more of like that traditional gamer background to kind of make it in the space. But I mean, at Click, we employ people all the time that haven't necessarily come from a gamer background. But I think if you appreciate the industry and you respect the industry and you've got an appetite for learning and a hunger for growth, like, you're going to be completely fine. And I think, some of the issues that we saw when we were initially working with brands that knew that they should be in gaming, knew that like that was somewhere where their demographic was, or the audience they were trying to reach was, but it was intimidating to go into conversations sometimes with gamers that would come in and like have this super high barrier of knowledge and be launching into conversations about different games and different modes and different esports leagues and like this and that. And I think sometimes it can be, I think some of our best like brand partnerships people are not necessarily the ones that have come from gaming. They understand it really well, but they have the ability to kind of zoom out a little bit and like take it from a brand's perspective and think about and articulate like, hey, this is where it's really valuable, and ensure that the brand actually feels like they really understand it, and they're not just sort of trusting someone who's saying like, trust me, I understand this, like, leave your budget with me.
Isn't that amazing?
It's actually, it's like educating the brand.
Me. Give me your, I'll take all your money, trust me, but we've never worked together. Like, brand marketers who are super conservative are going to trust some random person who wants to put their brand in the FPS guys, that's not how it works in the industry. But sorry to cut you off, but like I love it when we talk to people and like, trust us. Like, no, that's how it works.
Yeah. I think there's a big responsibility around and a big education piece around gaming. And I think I also think like that's the best way to test that you really understand what you're talking about, if you can educate someone that doesn't understand it. So I think I wouldn't, sometimes I'll get people asking me like, oh, I'm really interested in working in the space, or this is really interesting, but I don't, play League of Legends or play Roblox or whatever. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I think if you've got an appetite for it, like there's a heap of routes in gaming that, that require all sorts of different backgrounds and skill sets.
Absolutely. I think the big thing for us and what we found success in building out our team at Revolution and within REVXP is, we got to have people that are passionate about gaming, but also really good. First and foremost, are you business savvy? And then the second is, are you passionate about gaming? Do you care about what we're doing, right? And if you don't care what we're doing, we haven't had success because people are, they want to maybe work on sports or entertainment or, golf, football, whatever it is. But if you're passionate about gaming, you're going to come in and really care about what we do. And I think we have a high. I was watching Hard Knocks, which is, I don't know if you're familiar. I know you just came over to the States, but Hard Knocks, the NFL show, and the Jets were on it. And one of the coaches on the Jets said, have a high give a shit factor. And right?
Yeah,
I think that's like
I love that.
Right? Like, I think that's like, you got to have a high, factor in caring what we do. Like,
I'm going to adopt that, Chris.
Oh man, well I didn't. They got Hard Knocks, great show, obviously featuring the New York Jets this year, and football starts tonight. So, but yeah, I mean, like, we love that show. We're Giants fans in our household, but Jets are, But yeah, it's just cool. It's like high give a shit factor, and I think that's what we found in what we do in gaming is if you have that factor, you're gonna care. We have a lot of pride in what we do, like you guys do. When we worked with Carl Jacobs, I wasn't playing Minecraft. I'm not the Minecraft demographic, but man, I spent like 5 or 6 months in a custom Minecraft server with a bunch of buddies, and I played a lot of Minecraft because we cared, because we want to understand how to talk to those communities, and so that's how you do it. That's why our programs are successful and win awards, and that's why we have partners like you guys that we work with, because you guys have that factor. So
absolutely.
So Grace, Fortnite Creative has been blowing up. It seems like every brand is in Fortnite Creative right now. It's like every day. It's like new Fortnite Creative map by this brand, by that brand, by that. Right? We worked together years ago. Chipotle was one of the first to create a Fortnite Creative experience. The new Fortnite Creative is just insane, right? We've talked a little bit about it, but no better person to talk about it with you, with what you guys are doing and building at Click. So for brand marketers out there wanting to get into the Fortnite creative space, can you give us a little bit of kind of like how they should activate, like as an expert in the industry with top creators building these experiences? What are some, tips, tricks, cheat codes for them, brand marketers on how to activate within the creative scene?
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting space at the moment, and it's exciting because it's so new, and so you're seeing a lot of brands approach it in different ways. And first and foremost, I think it's an incredible way for brands to activate, because if you do it right, the stickiness can be so powerful. The ability to get the amount of players that are there, if you get them, but the ability to get the amount of people into an experience with your brand and have them stick around for 15, 20, 25 minutes and have an experience that's really immersive is pretty incredible. Like, I think that's something that gaming offers that other avenues of marketing don't offer. And so I think the opportunity is really there. But I do think over the last couple of years, we've seen like a mass kind of a huge amount of brands just say like, okay, yes, I need a Fortnite experience, and kind of launched into it. And perhaps, some of them have done incredibly well, and I think some of them have maybe not hit the mark. And so I do think there's a few things that brands should be thinking about before they just kind of like knee-jerk reaction and want to launch a Fortnite map. And I think the first one, and from our experience with the ones that we have done, these are the factors that we always try to come back to, and that is where we've seen the most success. So the first factor I would say is taking a diversified approach. Just creating an amazing Fortnite map it's not a build it and they'll come sort of thing. I think it would be, it's just, you're not going to be able to create an amazing Fortnite experience and then trust that it's just going to attract hundreds of thousands of people. I think like maybe there's a chance that would happen, but it's probably not very likely. And I wouldn't recommend a brand spend their budget that way. So I think having a diversified approach is really important. For a campaign we did recently with Maybelline, which won a few awards and was a really, really successful campaign, that involved a Fortnite map, but the Fortnite map was just one pillar that was taken in the campaign. So Maybelline, obviously a global makeup brand, not typically a brand you might associate with Fortnite, but for them, they really wanted to appeal to female identifying gamers. And so something that was really important to them was making sure that people felt confident to turn up in any environment. And I think what the brand did so well with that campaign was from the outset, they really listened to creators. Like we held a couple of working sessions with a bunch of our actual Fortnite creators to hear about like, what's important to you? Like, how is that theme relevant? And so the campaign, when it launched, involved multiple different elements. It involved, a high production element where we had some of our male creators actually using like a female voice changer, so that they were playing games with a female voice and kind of experiencing the kind of discrimination that can come through for female gamers in that experience. And then we had this amazing Fortnite map. It had a lot of paid media spend to support it. And then we had a tournament that was played on the map. So we had 32 female identifying gamers play both in person and digitally the map itself, which was a battle royale map. And that campaign was wildly effective. We had a bunch of supporting influencer content where creators were doing get ready with me streams, where they were doing their makeup before they gamed and played on the map. And so it was just hitting across so many points, and it was very successful for the brand. But I think it was because if we had just released the map, it wouldn't have been enough. It wouldn't have done the job. And I think it was because we had multiple touch points that allowed the audience to see that the brand was really authentic in the space. So I think a diversified approach is the first one. The second one is really thinking about how the brand can actually be adding value to the end player. I think, we have a lot of brands kind of come to us and say like, okay, I want the audience that's in Fortnite, which is great. But the reality is people that play Fortnite have a huge amount of choice when it comes to what they want to play. And so, I think brands can't have too much hubris when they come into the space and think that like, just because I'm X brand and I'm creating a map, people are going to care. So I think you need to really be thinking about when you're taking that diversified approach, how are you actually adding value to the creator? Is there some sort of tournament that you're offering? Is there additional entertainment value that you're offering? Is there some sort of code in the map that allows them to redeem something? I think thinking about how you're truly adding value to the end consumer is really critical. So I think that's super important. And then the third point I would say is taking a long-term view. I think a lot of brands come into the space, they expect to see results like that. Maybe they've never done something in gaming before and then they want to launch with a map and see results in 2 months. It's probably not going to be the case. And I think the brands that we see that take kind of a long-term view where they adopt those first two things and are really kind of immersing themselves and I often say that gamers, I think, like have a pretty high bullshit radar. Like they kind of know when they're being spoken to. And I think gamers now appreciate that brands are a part of the space. But I think they respect when brands do it the right way rather than just like a quick grab for attention.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's watched REVXP Presents knows that the three things that you said are very common themes, right? Like, if you build it, they will come. That's like, this isn't Field of Dreams, guys. Like, brand marketers out there. It's like, we learned that firsthand, when we built a map years ago and having a media budget behind it, having a true holistic strategy, just as you would have any strategy to do anything that, you just can't pop something up, right? Adding value is something that we like continuously talk about. If you follow me on LinkedIn, if you've watched the show before, like you and I talked about this before, like how do we add value? That's something that we could have a whole conversation on. And adding value doesn't have to be, giving something away for free. It could be an experience, whether it's showcasing a content experience, showcasing an experience within a map. Of course, clients like Chipotle love to give away free burritos. That's a great experience, but we do way more than that. And you guys do what, you talked about what you do there and hosting tournaments. So, all things that are really, really interesting. But I think the big thing for me, and something that we always try to work with our brands on, is long-term strategy. If you're going to do this just to get a PR hit, it's not going to work because, to your point, they can call the BS. They see it. It's great for a CMO to have a headline. Hey, I did a map in Fortnite. I did a Roblox activation. But what happens when that's over and the community is there? How are you engaging with them? And anything that you do has to add value, right? Has to have a plan, a marketing plan, and has to be long-term. What is your long-term strategy? Whether it's Fortnite creative, or it's working with the fighting game community, whatever it is in gaming. But guess what? These are simple marketing principles that apply to things outside of gaming. But for some reason, when marketers come into gaming, they're like, we don't need to do that, right? Why?
Yeah.
Right? And that's something we work with all the time. It's like, you need to have a strategy. And I think that, it's awesome to hear other, professionals in the space also preaching that, because rising tides, right? We want to, break experience.
100%. And I think, look, maybe there are some brands out there that are just looking for a PR moment, and like, that's fine, but it feels like kind of a wasted opportunity for me when it's probably, takes a little bit more lift to get there, but the payoff could be so much more. And I think with that as well is important to define like what does success look like for you. And I think that's a conversation that we're having a lot with brands at the moment when we're talking about maps is like, what's the metric that you care about? Is it players? Is it retention? Is it revenue? Is it, whatever it might be? And so I think defining like why the brand is in the space as well is a conversation that I feel like, you need to have a little bit more forward thought about that at the start.
Yeah, goals, objectives, KPIs, whatever you want to call them, are really important to identify up front, but also how are you going to measure them? Are the tools in place to measure? And I think a lot of challenges that we see, especially in this space and things that we push on are, especially on the creator side, like, hey, there's so many impressions you got. Like, yeah, anybody knows how many impressions you got on like Twitter. You can see it on the back end, but like, what's the media value? What's, give us deeper impressions. And I remember I had a conversation with a manager at Evo, and like, what's missing in the creator space? I was like, I don't know why creators think they can get all this money. They want these, massive deals, but then they don't want to give like analytics on the back end. And I remember having like a really, when we were negotiating with one of our big creator partners about 2 years ago, having like a big thing, and like, we just don't do that. And I'm like, why? Like, we're giving you more money than I've given like an NFL team, some NFL teams, but yet you're not giving us the data and analytics. You can't break off some money to go pay Blinkfy or Zoom or Nielsen or whoever to give you analytics back. Like,
the creator didn't want to give you their analytics?
Amazing. I think it's really interesting, and I know that that's stuff that you guys do, and it's important. Like, as the property, you're supposed to provide the recap of how to help us hit our goals and objectives. So something, if you're a brand out there and you're working with creators and you're working with map builders, like if they're not providing you data analytics, that's something to me that's a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's becoming more of a trend, definitely more on the creators that we're seeing and I think that's a product of the macro environment, which is obviously more challenging at the moment for brands. And a sign of a maturing market as well, where people are more performance focused. And I think I'm seeing quite a lot of pushback on LinkedIn and places like that, where people are saying like, oh, influencer marketing shouldn't be like quantified or performance driven or anything like that. And I, that's a larger conversation, and I get the arguments on both sides. But I think like ultimately, if we're moving to a place where brands are taking more of a performance view on how they're spending their money, that is a sign of a maturing market and a sign that, you're not just getting like 5 to 10 years ago, whatever the influencer spend was part of some like experiential budget that wasn't, super quantified. If it's moving to a place where brands are really being critical on where their dollars are going and why, I ultimately think that's not a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing. I mean, you got to remember brands have a lot of places to spend their money. And the industry as a whole has to, mature, as we've talked about. And I think it's moving in the right direction. But, to that point, there's so much place you can spend your money in this space, and, the market is so saturated. So, yeah, it's a good conversation. It's definitely a deeper conversation. It's great that you guys are providing those deep analytics to show your brand partners and having that conversation up front, because it's really important, and kudos to you guys for making, seeing the prioritizing that and seeing the value in that. So, Grace, as we end here, one of the things I want to talk about is the Fortnite community. And so I'm going to throw it over to our Data Nuggets expert, Ian, to take us through what separates the Fortnite community from other communities in gaming.
Welcome back. We're back like we never left with another batch of Data Nuggets for this week's REVXP Presents, where we talk to Grace about Fortnite and how to be creative within the game. Fortnite audience, much more to our surprise, is a little older than you think. We know the gaming audience tends a little younger, but the Fortnite audience themselves is actually a little bit more in that 25 to 44 range, with 60% being in that age group and half of that group actually being 35 to 44. Now, the good thing about this is it actually makes them a more affluent audience, with the Fortnite audience being 30% more likely than the average gamer to qualify as a high-income individual. Now, when we get into how the Fortnite audience interacts with gaming, with game streamers, with different celebs and influencers, 80% of the audience actively watches gaming streams, and 45% get their gaming information from the gaming personalities that they follow, making those really important touch points and places that brands can really work within the game to reach the audience. The Fortnite audience is actually 60% more likely than the average gamer to trust products that are recommended by those gaming personalities that they follow. And they're 40% more likely to engage with advertisements that are specifically tailored to them, which we know is a big hallmark of creator partnerships. Finally, 81% of the Fortnite audience loves to recommend things for people to try, also making them influencers within their own circles. Now, when we think about the types of brands that could interact successfully with the Fortnite audience, we wanted to look at a couple product and service categories that particularly popped within the Fortnite audience in terms of different areas that they are actively interacting with or are actively in the market from. A few that stuck out that we thought were interesting: banks, those looking to like switch banking services, looking at new types of banking services coming into the financial market as we become more digital. Tires, home goods, sporting goods, and hair care were all the top 5 categories that really popped with the audience and could be a great place for brands to interact with, again, a little bit more of an older audience within the gaming community, but one that's also more affluent and really resonates with some of that product advertising that happens within the game. Back to you, Chris.
Grace, thank you so much for your time. That was an amazing conversation, and I know brand marketers are going to find it really valuable considering how popular activating in the Fortnite creative space is right now. Where can people find you and Click?
You can find us anywhere on social media or the internet, at Grace Watkins or at Click Media.
Awesome. So we'll put those links in our YouTube channel. For those of you brand marketers out there watching, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you sticking with us after a pretty long hiatus. Again, we know your time is valuable, and we hope that you find this, at least interesting enough to spend some time listening to it and learn about this great space and opportunity in gaming. For those of you interested in attending the Esports Business and Gaming Summit, we'll have a link to register. It's coming up very quickly, end of October, right at the back end of TwitchCon. So hopefully we'll see you out there. And thank you guys so much. Have a great day. Play some games. Fortnite Creative. Check out the maps that Click is putting out. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.